What's up guys, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Today we're looking at two products from Emberlit. This is the original stainless steel stove, and we're also going to check out the Fire Ant stainless steel stove. And we're going to tell you why you might want to use one of these two as opposed to maybe just making a fire out there in the woods. Let's jump into it. Once you unbox them, this is the packaging that you're basically going to carry it around in. So it's a little bag. You can see there are instructions on the cover of the original. And then this is the Fire Ant. So a little bit more compact comparing the two. That's what the two different sizes are. So I wanted to give you a true New Hampshire experience as we work on this video. As you can probably see, the snow is starting to fall. We have a big storm that's about to hit, and schools are closed, a lot of businesses are closed, but I'm out here and this is a great opportunity to actually talk about these stoves, because this is the type of situation where you definitely want fire, and if you're gonna be cooking, this is a great way to do it. So let's talk about construction. For the original stainless steel Emberlit, obviously it's stainless steel. Putting it together is very simple. You have four sides, as you can tell. You put 1, 2, 3 sides together, and you're gonna put in your base, and you're gonna slide this front panel on, and then on the top you have these two cross beams, so you're gonna actually rest, maybe a pot, a pan, something like that on top of it. These come out really easily, and I'm gonna deconstruct it a little bit here so you can actually see what the process looks like. The hardest panel is this front one because it has basically two hooks that go down and two hooks that point up. It's not terribly hard to do, but a little bit harder than the other pieces. So one slides up, one slides down, as you can see, and then the other ones basically just all slide together. It's simple to do. It took me about probably 35 seconds to figure it out the first time, and once it's together, it's ready to rock and roll, and it's going to support pot, pan, whatever else you're going to put on top of it to be cooking your food. Let's take a look at the Fire Ant and that construction. Construction for the Fire Ant is pretty much the same thing. 3 sides, and then you're going to put the base in, and then you put the front panel on. They also give you this optional fuel supporter. So you can see up top we have a slit there, and then on the front and the back. So what you can do is you can actually, as you're constructing it, you can slide this piece in and have it supported on the top, and that allows you to use fuels. And there's a lot of different fuels you can use for this. The main one I like to think about is wood, just because I don't like to carry a lot of extra things, but there's gel fuels and other things like that. If you've used some of those old school camping stoves, it's kind of like Sterno, that gel type of fuel, but you can get tiny little ones that you can basically put the panel in up there. It'll rest on top of that, and now you've got heat right close to the top of your stove. So when you put your pot, your pan, whatever, right on top, it's not like the heat is all the way down in the bottom. It's right there, ready to cook your food or warm your food up, whatever the case might be. When it comes to fuels, there's basically 3 different styles of fuel you can use with an Emberlit stove, and on the back of the Fire Ant box they actually give you the information. They note option 1 is stick and debris, so basically wood, things like that. Next they say option 2 is Trangio or Esbit spirit burners, and that's essentially if you're going to be using something like an alcohol stove, that's the fuel you'd be using. And then third is solid and gelled fuels, and as I mentioned earlier, that's basically like Sterno and things like that. Let me give you a couple thoughts on why these types of stoves might be a really good option for you. First is that you have fuel everywhere. So if you're using fire sticks, things like that, you don't have to worry about packing fuel in. I've used a lot of like MSR style stoves, a nice camping stove, but you got to pack the fuel in, and you're always like, what if I run out? What's going to happen? If you're in the woods, you've probably got a ton of different fuel. Certainly not always the case if you're in a place that has no resources, but then you probably have other issues. Secondly is that you now have a structure that you can actually cook on top of. It's not impossible to cook over a fire, certainly, but with that structure, especially if you have a pot or a pan, you want to boil water in like your stainless steel clean canteen bottle, now you can put it on top of the stove. It's just a lot easier to operate. The third thing to think about is if you're in a situation where you want to have a low profile. So maybe you just don't want a lot of people to know you're there, maybe you're trying to get away from people, whatever the situation could be, with this type of stove you can have a smaller fire, so you're not actually producing a fire that people are gonna see as easily. And then second thing is smoke. So this thing will it'll be creating heat, and it just won't be putting out as much smoke. And in general, this is just a much more subdued way to cook your food and prepare things that you need fire for without having a full-fledged big fire. What you're looking at here is my setup, and since the stoves basically operate in the same way, I'm just going to use the larger stainless steel as an example and to test it out. So I've got some larger sticks, I've got some small sticks. Since I said you could use debris, I just found some paper towel around that's dry, and actually this is like scrap garbage from like a little to-go container from a local restaurant. So these crossbeams are on there just to weigh it down. But let's get this thing fired up, and then we'll either melt some snow or boil some water, and I've got a Stanley stainless steel container to do that in. So let me just turn this slightly, and I'm going to use a Bic later to get this started. It is quite windy out today, so let's actually do this. Get that inside. Start that. Now the advantage of the four walls obviously is that you keep the wind away, and it is quite windy today. So we're going to get this going, put some of that scrap in there, some of that scrap, and I'm going to start by feeding it down on through the top, and then I'll feed it in that in the side hole there. I'll just drop that right in. Break these up, start feeding them in the side like this. One thing you've seen that I've done so far is I'm kind of snapping the wood and then sliding it in, but the idea is that you can have sticks sticking out like that, and then you just kind of feed them in as time goes on. So I want to move around the side here so I'm not operating over the top of the fire. Whenever that wind kicks up, just feeds that oxygen in there and gets the fire really rocking. Got our Stanley cup on top there, and yeah, so the time is 10:42, and we'll see how long it takes this to get to a boil. All right, so we're moving toward almost about that rolling boil point, and I'm gonna take this nice hot water off the stove, make some tea. Let's wrap up here talking about these Emerlit stoves. I've got the Fire Ant here, and let me give you some thoughts. The first one is, here's what I would not use these stoves for. I would not use them as a heat source or a light source. So if you're camping in the winter, as you can see it's here, and you're like, I gotta get a fire going and I need heat, I wouldn't put it in this. It's not made to do that, and it's not made to give you a lot of light to, you know, operate around camp. So it's not for that. I don't think that's even a shot at these stoves. It's not like, oh, what's your problem? They're not built to do that. So just keep that in mind. If you're in camp at night and you're like, we gotta make a fire to get some light around camp, don't make it in this. Just doesn't make sense. What I can tell you is this is notably easier to cook on or cook over compared to your average fire. Now, that being said, when you look at the size of the top of the Fire Ant or even the other stainless steel one I was talking about, if you have, you know, say a big cast iron pot, like, you know, or pan like that big, then obviously you're just going to be heating a portion of it, and even if the whole thing kind of it heats and then the heat spreads out because the whole pan is heating up, you're still going to be getting more heat directly below this one area. So that being said, if you want to boil water, if you want to cook something on maybe something, you know, I would say a couple inches over on each side, I think that's going to be this is going to be a very efficient way to do it. If you want to, you know, cook or boil a huge pot of water, or cook, you know, a dozen eggs in a huge pan for a bunch of people you're camping out with, then again, I don't think this is going to be the best source. This is going to be great for maybe one or two people. It's compact, it's lightweight, and it really, really does keep that heat inside, you know, inside the stove, so that it's pumping the heat basically straight up into whatever you're cooking on. I was amazed at, especially when the wind kicked up. I shared this earlier in the video, but when the wind kicked up, man, that fire would just glow. It was really, really hot. So the way they have the holes on the sides, and then this big hole here where you can feed your fuel in. The holes allow the air in, so you're getting that oxygen in there to keep the fire going hot, but the fire is not spread out all over the place. It's very consolidated, if you will. I do want to check these out and test them using, you know, spirits or using some sort of gel as the heat source, because I do think that would actually be very efficient, and it would also burn longer. I did find, because it was so efficient burning inside, if I put any softwoods in there, man, they would just boom, get consumed super fast. So you want to be looking for, you know, harder woods. In my area, oak, maple, things like that. So is it worth purchasing? I would say yes, and I'll give you 3 applications. First is if you want to build like a bug out bag, a get home bag, an emergency bag, that again, you want to be able to make fire and cook something, but you don't want to make a big fire. This is just easier to cook over. It's more controlled, and it's just not as visible. So that's one. Second is that if you do a lot of, you know, maybe solo hiking, solo camping, or maybe with 1 or 2 other people, then this could be a good option as a compact stove for doing your cooking. The third option I would say this is really good for is if you're a lightweight backpacker or hiker, so you don't want to carry a lot of extra fuel. This thing, lightweight, compact. I mean, you see that's basically in a tiny little sleeve that you can just put down the side of your pack or the back of your pack. Fits into, I mean, you could probably put it in a back pocket if you had to. That's what I really like about this. So super lightweight, and it does give you a more controlled way to actually to rock your fire and to cook your food. So check it out, Emberlit. I'll put links down below that'll send you to places where you can actually purchase these different stoves. They also do have titanium versions, which are super lightweight, and they've got some cool little items on their website, like strikers, and you can get flint and a striker, and I actually got the Spartan head striker, so I'll put a link to that down below as well. Really cool thing. You can just throw it into a pack or throw it, you know, even on a keychain. It's kind of a cool accessory to have with you. So yeah, check it out, Emberlit. Very unique product. I saw other people review these and thought, I want to check them out, because they definitely sparked my interest, no pun intended there. All right, always want to invite you to subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids. We have about 2 videos coming out every week, so that'll keep you updated. You'll get information in your feed on YouTube to say, hey, here's some new vids that's coming out from Everyday Tactical Vids. So, you know, we're talking about everyday carry, we're talking about survival stuff, we're talking about training. We're going to be getting a lot more into mindset. We're always talking about kits too. I'm building a new kit right now, and that's going to be tested out probably in the later spring once it's all consolidated and put together. I'll do a review of the kit in one video, and then actually a full test of the get home bag that I'm putting together. So stay tuned for that. All right, thanks as always for checking out the videos. Really appreciate you guys being a part of the Everyday Tactical Vids community, and more videos coming soon. Take care.